Thanks for joining, Nick, Brittany. Appreciate it. Eric,
Glad to be here.
love it.
Yeah, same here.
So, can you guys see the polls?
Yeah, I can. It's
Per-
not in an intuitive place, but I saw it when it popped up.
Cool. So then, yeah, if you just everyone goes into the right side, you'll see polls kind of pop up, and then you can go ahead and answer the two questions that Tom set up, and that'll help kind of guide some of the conversation. And I'll take a look. Tom, based on your experience, kind of what and it sounds like there's kind of a lot of options we can go here too. But what are you kind of seeing as some of the most impactful, given AI and what we're seeing right now in the landscape?
Yeah, Brian, it's a really good question. I think we're in a moment where all the business leaders need to reframe and think about go to market differently. You can accomplish so much by setting up workflow automations, but I think it's a really valuable skill to start learning right now, especially as teams are lean. It used to be you really had to have one or two headcounts focused on appointment setting and top of funnel efforts in order to really have enough at bats to drive revenue. That has significantly changed, right? And specifically here in the last 60 days, a lot of goodness is happening. So I think there is something to be said about companies that want to be lean and want to finish that founder journey when they exit with just a couple of people on board. Learning these skills right now might save you millions at that exit moment.
That's great. Thank you. I mean, I guess so much of the conversation, even last month was like, you're like, what was that first, one person $1 billion company, right? Or like stuff like that. And, that's obviously going to be the outlier, but I think that's what, most of us are here for. And those that are going to be listening, seeing the recording as well is how has that evolved? What can we do to, as of course, as everything, do more with less, but do it thoughtfully. And so, yeah, I think as we kind of wrap up the poll results here, excited to see and take it from there.
Great. Love it. Love it. And team, for all the folks who are joining, thank you so much for doing the poll. Give us an idea of what you're focused on so we can make sure to speak to your actual specific persona and your needs. I want to just talk maybe a little bit about introduction and kind of my background and lens, and then we'll jump into the answers of the polls and get started. But my name is Tom Carter, first time founder, starting back in January. Before my founder journey was an individual contributor sales rep, worked at LinkedIn in the enterprise section, specifically in a team called High Growth, where we had 200% growth goals, where the rest of the sales team had 120% growth goals. Was fortunate enough to apply ROI selling and a little bit of some strong work ethic and finished number one sales rep out of 4,100 sales reps. I got a chance to coach an MON rep the following year. Got a chance to go to a startup company, which was purchased 6 months after that. And then went over to Gartner and got a chance to be 113th out of 5,200 sales reps. And it clicked for me that I had the ability to go work in large organizations and sell complete solutions, but I wanted to challenge myself to go to smaller companies and be that founding rep, that first rep or second rep, and have the opportunity to go do that. And those three startup companies were fortunate enough to exit. The last one being Uther Testing purchased for $1.2 billion by Tomo Bravo, and a Elevate Security purchase for $160 million. I watched these organizations and these leaders go through this process, and I went, I'm doing a lot of the work. Why can't I just learn the next skill, which is be the founder and be the developer? And sure enough, AI came in and gave me the opportunity to be able to dictate my vision of the platform. And here we are 6 months later with an opportunity to release a SaaS platform in the next 30 days. But I would love to be able to share what I've learned in my selling process, my go to market motion, and also be a little bit of humble and share what has not worked. So I think sometimes that can be just as valuable as what is working. Cool. Let's take a look at these
Amazing.
results. I think that's going to be a new tag to give us
Oh,
a
yeah.
close.
Sweet. So it looks like for who you were selling to, looks like we got SMB as the number one result. Second most is market and enterprise, both tied. And then as far as the second poll, rank these areas or pick two. I believe actually there's only the option to pick one. I don't know if there's a setting to pick multiple, but everybody picked selling strategy, targeting, and tactics.
Okay. Sounds good, team. I think we got a great way to start. Selling strategies. I want to talk a little bit about this piece and I want to make this interactive. There are a lot of different selling philosophies in the marketplace today. And if you are a technical founder or if you're someone who has not carried a bag and been in selling, you may not have had the opportunity or been challenged to go learn some of these different selling methodologies. And even if you're a seller, maybe you haven't been challenged to go do the studying process of saying, what are the strategies that we want to deploy or what is the selling methodology that we're going to deploy at this organization? So I want to start there because I think it's going to be a really useful conversation of which ones make sense for organizations that are trying to sell to SMB and give you maybe a short list of things to go consider. When we think about the journey of selling strategies, probably 10 years ago, there was a book written and it was called The Challenger Sale. And that organization was two gentlemen who really used evidence based reporting and decisions to build a sales philosophy based on what worked most consistently. And about the time that came out, it was supplanting or overcoming a value selling methodology that was built by Gartner. Value selling helped that organization have 42 quarters of double digit growth in their selling philosophy. So when we talk about, organizations that we want to benchmark off of and selling practices that really work well, value selling methodology and challenger sales methodology are the two that I really recommend you lean into for early learnings. And we're seeing those be adopted and changed as AI deploys. If you've ever been into selling strategies, you've probably received some kind of Instagram message from Jeremy Miner in his NEPQ program. And he talks a lot about changing the way that we talk, not using things like I'm just following up, really reframing your message to that seller so that you stand out as an individual and don't give them that negative experience, which is always consistent. That program is strong. I highly recommend you lean into learning it. And there are a lot of free resources to understand the questions that he recommends. The key factor there is there's not enough structure for it to be an enterprise play consistently. So we have to cherry pick the parts of the NWQ program that we really like and marry them into a program that has more structure. So I want to give you that early selling piece. But if I could, I'd love to hear maybe some from someone in the audience today. What is an early sales methodology program that you selected to choose and deploy, and what kind of results have you seen from it so far?
And then Tom, do you maybe mind sharing some, for those like it's funny, right? Like a lot of us, I started my career in sales over, back in 2012 or 2011. But in terms of like traditional frameworks, I'm not as even familiar with it. Like a lot of it's just kind of through all my different company stuff. It's just this is kind of what we did. Are there any frameworks maybe that either whether it's links or things you could share so we can kind of see? And I'm sure people, maybe for those of you that are using a very specific framework, would love to hear from you. But even for me, I know as a founder and been doing this for a while, I'm not as familiar with some of those specific types.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I would love to do that. I can definitely send you guys over some materials. Specifically, I have the NAPQ program, what I cherry picked from it, and what I'd recommend are enterprise level questions and what maybe are more better suited for small business. So happy to do that. Let me see if I can find us maybe some comparison charts between the selling programs. Let me maybe talk through what are some of the differences, because I think that's a really good question. So when you are doing value selling methodology, you're going to show up to the particular conversation. You have already done some research and built a thesis around what you believe their core problem is. You will have researched that core problem, and you're going to be having a conversation, asking questions about what is their options for approach to solve the problem. And what really makes value selling stand out from the other options is you're going to ask them, okay, help me understand what the ROI impact is to your business if you don't take action. If you go down option path A, what is the financial impact to the business? Making sure that you're asking really strong questions with business acumen about what does it look like from a opportunity cost perspective? What does it look like from a labor, consolidation perspective? What happens if you land that well that you haven't been able to land before? And you build out this narrative that if we go down the path of using our solution, what is the financial impact and who would care about that particular experience? A little different than challenger sales methodology, where you're walking in with the thesis, you're doing a lot of research, and then you're making a strong claim that's evidence based. And then you're driving the conversation with intent to get them to think about why they haven't taken action before. And you're essentially trying to get them to admit internally that, wow, we don't have the internal expertise or strategy or the right solution to lead this solution ourselves. They start triggering the thought that they probably should engage you, and it gives you the opportunity to be the thought leader with that particular transaction.
And then it looks like we had a couple comments, questions, or I think for Brittany too. Like I saw Brittany raise your hand, so if you're welcome to ask her at context.
Yeah, I was gonna write it, but I figured it was easier to ask the question live. Separate from the question in the chat. So hearing you talk about this, I'm not a salesperson by trade. I actually really hate it. But I know it is something as a founder that I have to lean into. And I'm trying to figure out the way to do it more authentically. But even the way that you describe the value base versus the evidence base feels very manipulative to me. Like, how is, because essentially, like, you're leading someone on this path where you know that, where you know where you're trying to take them, and you're trying to like make them say these things so that they're like, yeah, of course, I want to buy the thing that I'm selling, right? And that just doesn't feel good to me. Is there a way to like to sell this or to, offer up the product or whatever it is without feeling like I'm manipulating people into a path that I've, worn out?
Yeah, really good question. And Brittany, I think our first challenge of the day, and I'm so glad you brought this up. It's so important. Is as a founder and as someone who's representing the selling motion of your business, the first thing is to really understand where is your headspace at, and what is your intent and your overall viewpoint of the selling experience, right? So in my coaching background, I like to say things like head trash. What are preconceived notions that live inside of our brain that aren't productive to our outcomes? And one of those preconceived notions is going down a selling path is manipulative, and there are definitely manipulative people out there for sure. But if we have a personal trainer that sits down in front of someone that's never been successful with their diet or their workout regimen, they have to ask questions and get to an emotional why to get that person to really take change and to adopt that for the rest of their life. The question is them asking questions to get to that person's emotional why, is that manipulative? Or is that is a skill and a tool that's needed to trigger someone to go through a change moment that will change them for the rest of their lives? So one mindset thing that I would challenge you to do is, as you walk into your selling motion, decide that your intent is to really improve the business that you're working with, to really drive value for your customer. And there are times that you need to walk them through a learning journey that really touches them at the emotional core that will get them to adopt and to apply your philosophy. Now, there are some methodologies that come softer with their approaches and become more transparent early on. And Eric actually called this out with Sandler. Sandler is a great example of a selling methodology that is intended to be super transparent at the beginning of the conversation, to be super informative and educational. And then at the end, you make sure to keep control and take control of the closing process so that you're not giving away sales because you gave control too early to the particular prospect. So, Brittany, does that help answer some of your questions about? I think you're absolutely right. You want to be as ethical as possible with your customer, but my challenge to you is reframe your thinking there. You're not manipulating them. You're setting them up for success, and you're building skills within your own tool set to make sure that your customers can be successful in their adoption of change.
I have to sit with that a little bit. I'll be honest. Like, I'm still kind of hesitant. It still feels manipulative, but I hear what you were saying as like asking general questions, like genuine questions rather, and seeing where that goes. I think maybe it's just like the quote unquote frameworks that I've seen have always been like, ask these specific questions so you can hear them say, yes, it's going to cost us $10,000 a month if we don't, have a solve for this. And that feels manipulative, so
Yeah, it's a learning journey for them, right? You've spent the last 3 months learning about your value add and what your product does, and this candidate and this customer sitting in front of you, and they may have only looked at it for 5 minutes, maybe even sometimes
mhm.
30 seconds on a digital ad. So it's a little bit of grace to say, what does it take for the adult in front of me to go down this learning journey? And what do they need to understand and capture in order to feel comfortable to make this decision? So there is most certainly a little bit of that, I need them to have this realization moment, and you can do it authentically, right? So a good question for you, Brittany, is, hey, you're a new founder and you have to adopt sales and represent the business. What does it mean to you personally if this venture is successful for you?
So even that question like that doesn't feel like, well, why does that matter? Like, I'm a founder and I'm selling a thing. And like the general answer is like for me to be a founder, building something that means that I need it to be successful. So like to me, it's like you kind of already know the answer. You just need me to say it. And how is that helpful to me versus helpful to you? And sorry, I
Yeah.
don't want to like monopolize this conversation.
No,
So
it's
I'm
good.
happy to like take a step back and like can let you do like what you plan to do. But yeah.
No, I appreciate your feedback for sure. Those are the kind of questions that might feel icky, but if they're well intentioned and they're intending to drive the customer towards making a decision in your product or your service, it's absolutely worth it to them to have that moment where they have their own self realization moment. And I want you to challenge yourself not to feel like that's icky. It's really intended to help them make a decision and better their lives through your services.
Right. Right.
And I think one last thing to add here before, and again, Brenda, no, this is great. Like the goal of this, because we have it as the whole point of an interactive workshop here at Gilder versus our executive ones. Granted, Tom is obviously a very talented executive as well, but the goal is to have these. It's less of like that. We will have a presentation and deck to share as well, but it's to facilitate that conversation from all parties, right? And so please keep asking those questions, right? And I encourage everyone here as well to do it. And my last comment on that as well, at least from what I've learned, not as, high up in the sales chain as Tom is, but as long as the value is there, then I think that's where I've always felt very strongly like whether it's leading questions or asking more, knowing that the end result will pay off for them. And of course, it's never fully guaranteed, right? With depending on what you're selling or what the value prop is. But if you know based on whether it's customer satisfaction results or retention or pure results from revenue, whatever it is, if you know the results are there, then that to me always gives me a lot more conviction when whether it's for Romely, whether it's for whatever it is. So that's always kind of how I see it from my conversations doing founder-led sales.
Yeah.
And then may I ask Maher, you have a hand raised?
Yeah, so thank you for this interactive session here. And I'm a solo founder, and my entire career has been on engineering and product management side. So learning my ropes around sales and business development side, and it actually feels the hardest of all the jobs, to convince another person to be excited about what you are excited about. So I needed some ideas or your insights about what could be an interesting sales motion or an angle for a cybersecurity product, given that the persona of the people that you're trying to sell to are very risk averse, not open to a whole lot of new ideas. Given that kind of a persona, any ideas or insights, what can help?
Yeah. Yeah, I would definitely recommend that we grab some time offline because selling to cybersecurity is a little bit of a different stakeholder. I did sell to cybersecurity at Elevate Security. I also supported CISOs and CIOs in their cyber decisions
Awesome.
at Gartner. And one of the learning motions that I found really impactful was there is a podcast led by a really strong voice in the CISO community. He is very, very passionate about telling sales reps how to sell to other CISOs. I think
Oh, awesome.
I'll definitely share that podcast link for sure. I believe his last name is Johnson. I can't remember his first name. Michael, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you. I apologize for being on the mobile. Lots going on here. Most of these sales calls are online, I take it, or are they in person that you're talking about, or both?
Online.
Okay. So, Tom, I sort of have a question for you when doing online. So, this is my view that I give people when I'm online. And I have these pictures in the back and I have these things here. I don't blur and I certainly don't use an AI because it just pixelates and it seems so odd to me.
Sure.
What do you suggest people do? Blur it or have things like this that you can create some kind of human connection and they might say, hey, what's that? And then you could talk about yourself a little bit. Like that's the way I've always done things, mixing sort of human with sales together. Is that the right way to do it or how do you look at it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think these are two different questions, right? So I think what you're referencing, Michael, and I think it's very important for everybody to know, you should learn human behavior around a visualization of your actual digital experience. So there is a gentleman that teaches a webinar on how to frame your webinar calls like you're a movie producer and to think about lighting, think about the angle of your face. There's all this data that says that you want to have yourself in the top 2/3 of the camera. So I only have a little bit above my head here. You like to have the camera looking at your eyes, not from the nose angle. That actually signals around trust, right? There are a bunch of data around how to present yourself best to trigger the right emotion. Again, is it manipulative versus being strategic? I think those are really good questions that maybe Brittany asked earlier. And for me, I just thought I want to bring myself and present myself as cleanly as possible. So I taught myself about these cinematic shooting strategies and using the right equipment, the right things. I don't think I've perfected it, but I've made myself look better than I previously did. Right. So I think that's the win. To go back to the original question, though, selling into cybersecurity, you have a couple different strategies. One is making sure that you understand where are they finding information at, and are you presenting your brand to them in a informal educational manner. And there are a number of different conferences that do that well. Number two, making sure that you're framing your solution as a part of a holistic strategy. And the idea is that we want the CISO to walk into the board and say, what is your risk tolerance? What are you willing to risk? They typically will say, we're not willing to take any risk around cybersecurity. Then their challenge is to say, okay, great, we need to be able to fund to eliminate that risk and have a funding ask in order to apply your solution. So there's some education around teaching CISOs to have a strong ROI conversation and being able to present to the board to get funding for your solution, and be happy to have a conversation with that offline. In terms of selling
Awesome.
methodologies that do well, I would, yeah, thank you so much. In terms of selling methodologies, I'd probably look at the challenger sales methodology as your baseline methodology for cybersecurity selling. That's just I'll give you a little hint to the game there. All right, team. So we're
Got
gonna
it.
move
Got
on
it.
to
And
okay.
could you please share the YouTube link as well, please? The
Yes,
one
of
that you said.
course. I got you.
Thank you.
No problem. No
Thank you so
problem.
much.
Of course. All right, team. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to jump into some deck. We're going to start sharing a little bit of our slide. I think this is intended for us to be able to talk about how can we scale our overall deployment of our efforts using agentic workflows. And then we're going to talk a little bit about strategy as we go, but there are going to be some technical conversations here, and I think a lot of us in the room are building using AI, so I don't think this would be too new to us. I want to call out a couple of newer solutions that are going to really shorten the runway for you to get meetings booked for you, and then we're going to talk about how to leverage these into really meaningful moments for your customers and education moments. Okay. All right. So first things first is we want to talk about, do you have a headcount problem or do you have a leverage problem? And today, I think during my first conversation with Michael, very, very well stated that distribution is the real challenge, right? How do we get our message to as many people as possible in an authentic way? How do we get them to learn about our brand and our offering so that when they do show up to the meeting, they're ready to have a conversation about our solution and they're a warmed up client already? And this conversation is intended for us to share what are some of the things that we can do to get the brand message out to people so that when they show up to the selling moment, they know enough to be warm and to be ready to be able to take action and get to a close. One of the things that we wanted to share is if you are using some of these solutions that we're going to talk about today, it's going to do a lot more for your business than just going out and hiring a VA or hiring someone to appointment set for you. One of the first things that you learn when you build your business, when you go to hire your first setter to set appointments for you, when they work, where they're working out of, their ability to talk to the customer, have business acumen, all those things really matter. But what matters maybe more than that is being available to your customer when they're asking for information, which means being available to them 24/7 and making sure that we're optimizing our selling experience via the mobile phone, which most of our customers will engage our brand the first time potentially on their phone. So I think it's important for us to think through how are we using AI to do that and how does it move into our selling process. I'm a very pragmatic, action-oriented individual. After I do a presentation or if I listen to someone's pitch, I ask myself, what can I take away from that? And do they recommend I do next Monday? These are the 5 things I really, really recommend that you go focus on if you're not doing this already. Number one, if you didn't know this recently, Claude has the ability to wire and connect to N8N, which allows us to go build workflows for selling processes. That means things like capturing people who come visit our website, pulling them into enrichment solution, getting them moved over into a messaging solution, and being able to drip campaign them until we can take action. So if you're not leveraging that today, if you don't feel comfortable building your own nodes or building workflows, you can now just have a conversation with Claude. It can go build that for you automatically. There's a little bit of an MCP server connection process that you need to do, but not too hard. You should be up and running in probably 30 minutes or less. Any questions there? Because I know that's kind of a big outcome that's changed here in the last 60 days. Cool. All right, no questions there. Next one, scheduling agents will be whatever tool that you use. If it's going to be ChatGPT or Claude, you now have the ability to create some agentic workflow so that Claude can pull information and bring them either to your team or to your customers on a regular basis. So, for example, I have 3 sales reps that we are using for setters. Every morning, a new agentic workflow is identified. It's built out in a graphic, We then pull that into an S3 bucket in our Cloudflare account for next to no money. It then speaks to what the customer pain points might be that would want to use that workflow. And then it teaches my team on how to sell it to them, asking the right questions and finding the businesses that have those problems that this workflow can fix. Next piece is data enrichment workflow. So just because you have a phone number and an email address doesn't mean that you have a lead. It just means that you know someone. And Brittany, to your point, being authentic means making sure that that customer really is interested in your product or has your problem. So with AI tools today, we can have them look at LinkedIn, have them look at Reddit, look for customers that are having messages or making comments around our pain points. We can pull those signals out, enrich those signals, and then go message them so that they're warmed up and ready to have a conversation on the sales process. You definitely want to build a human approval gate in this process. That it's going to send you a lot of signals. I have a lot of them be sent to my Google Sheets, and I have pages of signals. And we want to make sure that a human goes through those and approves and qualifies those for us to take action on. And then lastly, making sure that each workflow marries to another one. So if we do a workflow to pull leads or signals out of LinkedIn and we enrich them and we start sending them messages, it's important that workflow doesn't end, that we are following that customer through the journey. So that's someone that might not choose to book a meeting with us in the first 30 days or even the first 5 weeks. But if we stay engaged with them when it's time for their business to make an agentic workflow decision or whatever solution that you're using, they may remember us and come back to us. So it's important that we have that drip campaign going. Any questions on the 5 things to do by Monday?
I had a question around, are you using like, your favorite AI assistant to do all this, or do you also work with other tools? Because I've heard of Apollo, I've heard of Wiza, to do the data enrichment and things of that nature. And then the second question is like, when should you do all this work? Because like this sounds cool, but like, at what point of your launch strategy is it like when you first launch? Is your beta? Is it like, timing? It would also be interesting to understand.
Yeah, I think actually I'd love to get the group's opinion on timing, but in my opinion, my solution is approaching MVP, and I'm doing a soft launch this month, and then at the end of July we're going to do a hard launch, and the solution is going to be available for introductions. I'm also doing consulting for businesses to be able to do those things. So I'm doing the consulting and launching the software platform at the same time. So for me, I want to have my message out there consistently. So I thought it was important for my team to be able to meet some of those labor costs to have a consistent message going. So to answer your question, we thought it was important after we had a solution that we could show a customer, after that we knew that we could add value to businesses via consulting, is when we decided to scale this out. And again, it was probably 72 hours of work in total, like three full days of actual work. And it's probably a half day of maintenance to make sure that it's working properly. But it's not a crazy amount of time. And then to answer your other question around, am I using different services like Apollo, et cetera? The answer is yes, but not required. So Claude to N8N can accomplish a lot with a Google Workspace without having to pull in another resource. If you want to have more bells and whistles, I personally use Gojiberry AI, which does a lot of the DM messaging on LinkedIn, a lot of the comment messaging. It finds signals of people that have my problems and brings them to me so that I can start having conversations. And frankly, it's booking about 2 or 3 meetings automatically every other day, just from having about a $60 budget from each month go out. So I've had a really strong return on investment from that particular tool. Enrichment tools, you'll definitely want to use probably Seamless or Apollo. I think both of them are great solutions. You'll want to, in your workflow, take those signals and go enrich them to get information. And I think that you can use either one of those tools based on what your preference is. Really good
Thanks so
question.
much.
Of course, of course. All right, team, we're going to keep rolling on the deck here. What to do next? So I've used a couple terminologies, but I just want to give you a quick visualization. It's you decide what matters, who your persona is, who your customer is, how you want to pursue them. You have the conversation with your AI agent that you're already doing today. You're then going to use the MCP bridge to move over to an executor. So as of right now, if we just use AI agents, if it's OpenClaw, if it's one of these solutions, sometimes the triggering motion is not consistent and it can be hard to be able to build around that. So you use N8N or Zapier to do the execution steps consistently. You then move that data over to the apps or the solution that's going to be doing the actual work. So again, that could be Gojiberry, that could be your email provider. You may actually bring it back to your Google and do the work yourself via some templates. There's lots of solutions there. But the entire solution here is find the right person who's ready, be strategic using AI, connect it so the steps fire automatically, get them interested, get them information, and then get them to set the appointment for you. And all that happens in the background so that you're not necessarily having to go get headcount early on in the business. Okay. I think we've talked about this, so I'm going to go ahead and skip there. Um, the solutions between N8N and Zapier, I'll leave that up to you. N8N feels a little bit more technical. Zapier feels more plug and play. It's definitely more enterprise ready. If you're going to be an enterprise provider long term, I think I would recommend learning Zapier long term. If you're going to be someone who's going to be a little more scrappy in servicing SMB and mid market clients, then N8N might be a better solution for you from a cost perspective. I want to talk a little bit about scheduling and cadences. So you might have heard cron jobs. So if we're going to be selling, we want to be able to send messages to customers on a consistent basis so that we're in front of them when they're ready to make their decision. And we can now schedule those on your favorite AI platform, Claude or ChatGPT. Making sure that the agent refreshes the information and has the next logical step is a really important part in the prompting process. And then making sure that we're acting with those workflows that we've talked about. If you are a Slack shop or if you're using some kind of Teams, et cetera, you can actually set up those notifications to come when someone engages your content. So you know when they're interested and you can be able to do that next selling motion, which is obviously book the meeting, do some discovery and be able to get to the next step. Okay. This piece right here, and I think is important, is when we're ingesting data from leads, we want to score these leads on their intent. So again, just because you have a phone number and email doesn't mean that you have a real lead. A lead is someone who is genuinely interested in looking at your solution. They have a problem, they're looking to solve it. And AI is a wonderful tool for us to be able to score that lead so we can get a sense of how to organize our follow up and connect with the customers that are the hottest or the most interested in our solutions. And that's something that can be a pretty easy thing for you to execute on the agentic side. If you have any questions after this, I'm happy to be able to engage you guys with that. So I think we've probably covered a little bit of the AI to death, but I think you guys get a general sense of where I'm going with this, right? I'm showing you solutions that can replace your appointment setting, and I think that can be very valuable to the business. I want to turn it back into the engagement series and ask maybe what are some of the bigger questions that you're wrestling with from a sales perspective. Nick, you've been really engaged, man. So I would love to just, you're on my screen. So I kind of want to call you out. Is there anything that's top of mind for you that you're looking to maybe close on, or a selling process question that you haven't decided on yet?
You said Nick, right?
I did. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Tom. Yeah, I have some on my notes here. First question, these are all kind of overlap each other. Is email dead? That's what I wrote in my book here. And then also just your thoughts on like A/B testing messaging. I think, like right now we're just opening and we're scaling and we're sending out many emails and, don't really have a concrete strategy of like the A/B testing, and not getting, great responses from email. So that's kind of where I'm sitting.
Yeah. I appreciate the question. I think it's really important that we don't talk in things of finality, right? So nothing is dead. There might be a shift of what is a better medium for you based on your persona and the customers that you're engaging with. So, Nick, for instance, if your platform is intended for business owners, that go to market strategy and that digital utilization, that digital tool might look really different than if I'm messaging to a business leader of a mid market or enterprise customer who's more apt to be on LinkedIn, who's more apt to engage digital advertising, right? But our business owners are inundated with emails all the time. They may not respond to those. They may have filters that put them into spam. So we need to maybe think differently about our persona based on who you're messaging to. So I don't think any channel is dead. I think any channel could be successful with the right strategy. And sincerely, if you're not getting any results at all, it's probably because your messaging is not hitting the right nerve quite just yet. But the way that we get there is using that A/B approach. To your point. So when I worked at user testing again sold for 1.2 billion to Tomo Bravo. Why user testing was interesting? It was taking digital messaging and running it through a number of different customers, asking them really good questions for them to share what their thought was on the experience. So me and you are founders. We're not necessarily the people that we sell to on a regular basis. Not everyone chooses to go learn AI and builds their own platforms and does that. We're a different subset of humans. So we might approach a digital experience differently. But our core customer might say, I need the text to be larger because I'm on my phone and I'm in my 40s and it's hard for me to read the text. So at user testing, there was a correlation. The larger the text was on mobile experiences, the higher the conversion rate was. There are all these little things that we can A B test and think about. And the core goal is, who is our customer? What will make it easier for them to read and transact with me? And how do I shorten the learning curve so they understand what I do? But A B testing, yes, 100% worth it. It used to be, if you do user testing and you had to hire humans to go through your digital experience, it was very expensive. I think use Gilder, send people your landing pages and say, can you guys give me feedback on this experience? Hey, Tom, can you go to my mobile experience and give me feedback on what you like and don't like? Use this network, I think, is a free solution. And then AI has gotten much better at approximating what a human experience would be. So you can send 200 agents to go through your digital experiences and have them articulate what they like and don't like about your experience versus your competitor, and start thinking about what that benchmark experience might be like.
Yeah, and I also shared there's another one of our other members has joined. He's got a company called Featurely, where exactly as Tom said, they'll give you 1,000 plus pricing simulations, landing page conversion simulations. So a lot of these tools out there that are continuing to get better with that. But yeah, appreciate that knowledge there, Tom. And then I
Yeah,
think I know that Jay and Sandeep have their hands raised.
awesome.
Yeah, Tom, what do you think is working more effectively for, AI type of services or products these days? Or what channels?
What channels? Okay, got it. Yeah.
Mhm.
So there's an interesting moment in time that's happening. The Instagram is becoming a more prevalent tool in the selling motion of software. And I think it was an ignored channel for many months, many years. And I think that has changed significantly. So we're seeing the younger generation focus on TikTok. TikTok was essentially YouTube for them. It was a way to learn things using video much faster. So I think I see the younger generation moving towards TikTok. And we see this weird, really strong branding coming from these young millionaires that own software companies, that are using private jets, that are smoking their cigars, that are using race cars, et cetera. And we're finding that they're engaging and learning about software from these social media experiences. So when we look at companies that have lots of spend, it's very easy and very consistent. Facebook to this day is still your highest ROI in terms of digital advertising versus ROI, because of their ability to do targeting and the amount of members they have. Followed very closely by Instagram. LinkedIn is a very, very strategic tool, but it does not yield the best ROI in terms of cost per close, because they're charging you a premium in order to get in front of decision makers for enterprise tooling. So if you're selling enterprise tools, your options are most likely going to be LinkedIn and Instagram, because that's where your executives are going to spend their time at. Not probably going to spend a lot of time on Facebook unless they're in the social capacity. But I like to spend my money early on the tools that are consistently drive stronger ROI, and those are some of the feedback that we have. And I think TikTok is a unutilized channel, and for a lot of younger families, younger businesses. So I think there's definitely opportunity there, and we've seen some strong results in early messaging there.
Yeah, and also what we're seeing is that this new announcements from Instagram on supporting the long form content, they are going to promote those people who are producing long form content heavily now. They're going to
Yes.
be competing with Netflixes and TikToks. So I think that's going to be a new wave that's coming that we should utilize.
Yeah. Really good question, man. Thank
Mhm.
you. Is it Sandeep's next?
Yes. Hey, Thomas, thank you so
Yeah.
much. This was very good.
Sure.
I have one question. So a little bit of context. I'm in the middle of a fundraising push. So I guess what I'm selling is equity in the business.
Yeah.
And I'm using LinkedIn as my primary sort of channel because with my name, I feel like when people get to see my profile, they just like trust me. They're like, okay, this is like a real guy, he's not a bot. One thing I'm kind of struggling with, I have like an AI process to find leads, to figure out some backend stuff that I can message them with and all that. One thing I'm kind of struggling with is how do I turn a conversation into a meeting? Because at the top of the funnel, what do I how do I think about like converting engagement into meetings?
Yeah, sure. I love that question. Yeah, I want to be really clear and transparent here too. I'm just now starting my strategy towards fundraising. And let me give you my experience, and then maybe we can turn it over to some folks that have more experience in the room. I've helped one of my Series B organizations fundraise to Workday. It was a $5 million raise. So it was me and the CEO pitching to Workday, and we were able to successfully accomplish that. Was able to tee up one of my organizations to have the conversation with Homo Bravo, which led to the 1.2 billion. And then I was brought into the room between Microsoft and LinkedIn. And when that acquisition took place, there were less than 100 people in that. And I was asked to do that because of the high growth team and the ROI selling methodology I brought to them. So my experience has been a little adjacent. I haven't been the person driving the conversations, but sitting for my own platform, here's what I've done to position that, and a little bit of reading I've done. First, I wanted to use AI to help me understand who are the fundraisers that particularly fund solutions that I have, and what are some recent wins, so that when I go engage them, I can engage them with a very thoughtful conversation. Hey, Nick, it looks like you had a successful raise for this amazing company called XYZ. I really love that you guys were able to accomplish X in with the amount of time. Can we grab time and have a conversation about what you learned and what you're looking for in your next major win? Having that information about what they did, why they choose to invest in companies, what made them successful, some wins. I think those are things that will get you the meeting because it's authentic, right? You're celebrating their success. You're asking for the opportunity to meet with them. And then the whole point of Gilder, which I'm sure you're aware, is leveraging this network in order to go have the conversation. So one of the things I wanted to make sure we touch on today is social selling. So when I was at LinkedIn, I went to LinkedIn and said, your filters on Sales Navigator don't work the way that we work as humans. And they said, what do you mean? I said, when I go into a meeting with someone, I sit down, I say, Nick, do you know anybody that has contacts at these 5 companies? And Nick says, well, let me think about that. I don't know everybody on my LinkedIn network. I have 5,000 people. Oh yeah, I know one person of the 5. But the filtering on LinkedIn had the ability to look at their entire network. So there is a filter called connections of that is in the advanced setting of Sales Navigator. It will allow you to meet with someone, pull up their name, pull up the companies you're targeting, and it will scan their entire network and let you know if they are connected with someone. And then you can ask the question, how well do you know them? And that's a natural way for you to efficiently move forward in your social selling methodology.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. And this was primarily to find connections that have raised from an ideal investor, correct?
Yeah, exactly. So you use AI to build you. So I'll send you over a prompt if you remind me of this prompt that I used to give me a strategy document on me as an agentic workflow platform. Who are the investors that are investing in similar solutions today? Who's had success? And it gave me names, businesses, wins, etc., things that I can reference. Then I used Sales Navigator to understand who in my network knows these individuals so I can ask for warm introductions authentically and be able to message them with something that was success for them individually.
That's awesome. Yeah. I'll message you. Thank you.
Cool, for sure. Yeah, good question, man. We haven't talked about it, but initially when me and Tyga sat down for this, the conversation was, how do you strategically get in the room with someone versus just digitally talk with them, right? And this is where I think, you know, it being hungry to grow your business, being hungry to make it successful means that you need to think outside the box to get in front of people. And the way that I thought about doing that is once I understood who my target investors are going to be or who are the business leaders that would be meaningful in my space, I wanted to understand what conferences are they engaging with that I can go to. So if one of them liked a button at a conference that was coming up, I felt a little more comfortable that they were going to be attending that if they were engaging with that particular conference. Or if they were a keynote speaker at a session, I now know that they're going to be there. And I go out of my way to look for my network for an introduction into that person so that I can meet them face to face. I feel like that is a missed opportunity in today's digital society. The more that we can get face to face, like we had in Chicago, I think the better likelihood of success. So if you're not doing that today, I think I would highly recommend being more strategic about getting face to face with your ideal peers.
That's great. Any other questions or final thoughts, Tom, as you? I know we've got about 8 minutes left here, a few minutes, and I know there's a lot of I think follow-ups that you very generously welcome to share people, which is great. Any other general thoughts, whether it was related directly to that? Of course, again, this is all recorded in the presentation. I guess, Tom, do you have the deck also maybe that you're able to share out to the group after? That would be great.
For
And
sure.
then we'll make sure we link it. But Tom, any other final closing thoughts or anything that we should look for?
Yeah, listen, I think the rules of the game of growing a SaaS organization are changing. And it's important for us to learn from the people that came before us. So the Michaels, the Bryans, et cetera, to go to them, to extract information from them, to solve the problem that's in front of you today. And then also, before you go execute against that, ask yourself the question: has technology changed the approach to make this easier or more efficient for me to solve for? And then if the answer is yes, then go find someone who has delivered that and execute against it to leverage it for yourself. I think we're about to see the first wave of, we've already seen the first billion-dollar company, the first individual solo SaaS company that's made 250 million in revenue. I think that wave is coming. We're going to see more of those in the next 24 months. And my challenge to myself is to think about, do I really need to add headcount, or do I need to add a process or add a resource? And I think I'm finding that it's really about adding processes and resources. And if I'm not good at it, being honest with myself and find someone who's really good at it to go ahead and do that. And if I have to spend $5,000 with someone teaching me a workflow that saves me a headcount that they would have asked for equity, it may have be an exchange of $15,000 in consulting fees that would mitigate 500 or $1 million in shares down the road. And I want to think authentically about that as I go through my founding process.
Amazing. Well, Tom, thank you again for your time and sharing everything for this interactive session. And excited to kind of take it. I know you had a second deck as well, so maybe we can do a continuation or some follow ups here as well. But also to everyone, thank you for your questions and driving this conversation. This is exactly the goal that we have with these interactive workshops, where we know that everyone here is generally in that top 1% space of what they're building, albeit a lot of different things. So can we continue to put the people in the room together for that? So we'll send the recording out. Tom, you're welcome to, if you want to share the deck in the circle group, that would be great. And then we'll look forward to continuing the conversation.
Great.
Thank you, Tom. As a gesture of good faith, being in the community, I want to endorse you for some skills on your LinkedIn, as well as commented on a couple of your stories to highlight you. I appreciate you. Thank you.